Thank you so much for joining us this morning as we celebrate our accomplishments of the Cornerstone Program, the Dredged Material Management Program, or the DMMP. We have a very dynamic agenda ready for our meeting today. As we do each year, we'll do a look back over the past year and what occurred over the past year, and we will also outline our priorities for 2026 and the years ahead. This year's Science and Stakeholder Voices panel will spotlight stories that highlight MPA's strong ties to scientific innovation and its ongoing commitment to stewardship through collaboration and partnership. So before we begin, I just wanted to express my gratitude to our Metzer Harbor Hospital partners for hosting us again at this wonderful location and for continuing to be such a valued partner. Thank you so much for your continued support and making today possible. Okay, so today's meeting is being live streamed, and we appreciate those of you that have joined us and tuned in online. Let me note just a few best practices that will help our meeting run more smoothly. As with all of our DMMP meetings, today's session is being recorded. We also want to encourage you to make this meeting as interactive as possible, so please feel free to ask us any questions that you may have. To ask a question, simply just raise your hand and one of our staff members will come and bring you a microphone so that all of our attendees can hear your question. For our online attendees, please submit your questions to ecoport@marylandports.com and our staff will reply as soon as possible. So as most of you know, the Dredged Material Management Program develops and implements sustainable, climate-resilient solutions to address the Port of Baltimore's ongoing need for a 50-foot deep channel system that supports waterborne commerce and its associated benefits. The DMMP also showcases our collaborative efforts. Your involvement and dedication to this program inspires everyone at the MPA, and it's also essential to our success. Together, we address challenges, we find solutions, and we enjoy the mutual benefits of our joint investments in the port and our communities. The Office of Navigation, Innovation, and Stewardship has made significant strides in a year of stewardship fueled by science. The expansion of the Cox Creek and Masonville dredge material containment facilities are affording additional capacity and were completed on or ahead of schedule. Construction of the Midbay project proceeds apace, and we continue to make progress on implementing full-scale reclamation of dredge material for innovative reuse and beneficial use at the Cox Creek Sediment Technology and Reuse, or STAR, facility. 2025 has been a year of exciting successes, but not without its challenges. Funding across the state is constrained in ways that have not been seen since the pandemic, and there is limited availability for federal grants that once supported outreach and non-mission critical initiatives. These constraints necessitate challenging prioritization of projects, and it underscores the need for adaptive, resource-efficient strategies. At the same time, current placement capacity, even with the successful completion of recent expansion projects, is not sufficient to handle both ongoing maintenance dredging and new work placement and new private sector work without straining our harbor placement sites. These conditions emphasize the importance of developing long-term solutions, such as large-scale innovative reuse and beneficial use, while maintaining transparency and engagement with our communities. As we look ahead, we remain focused on securing long-term capacity, aligning with major infrastructure efforts such as the Howard Street Tunnel Expansion Project, and ensuring that the DMMP continues to be a model for responsible, science-based, community-informed management of dredge material. So despite these challenges, the DMMP has proven to be resilient. It remains on track for this year, and it continues its positive momentum into 2026. We hope this meeting will offer valuable context for everything that took place in 2025 and gives you insight into what lies ahead. Together, we aim to boost Maryland's economy, improve the quality of life for our citizens, and protect the Chesapeake Bay for Marylanders. Okay, so before we proceed with our agenda, I'd like to acknowledge those of you that serve on our DMMP committees all year long. As I read the committee name, please wave your hand if you're a member. I'm going to start with the DMMP Management Committee. Okay. The Hart Miller Island Citizens Oversight Committee. Okay. The Cox Creek Citizens Oversight Committee. No. Okay. The Innovative Reuse Committee. Okay. The Masonville Citizens Advisory Committee. The Bay Enhancement Working Group. Okay. And of course, our DMMP Citizens Advisory Committee. All right. Thank you so much to all of our committee participants. Now, please raise your hand if you're not on a committee. Come on. Who's not on a committee? There we go. All right. We're extremely grateful to be able to engage with community groups, partner organizations, sister state agencies, and the general public that are interested in the port and the work of the DMMP. Your involvement and commitment make the entire program successful. In 2025, our team at MPA collaborated with all of you to implement the DMMP, executing a variety of science-based strategic operational initiatives. Top priorities were the expansion of dredged material containment facilities, capacity optimization, innovative reuse of dredged material, and stakeholder engagement. We implemented important capacity building projects, and we worked to strengthen our working relationships with the private sector, the federal government, our sister state agencies, and various stakeholder communities. I'm extremely proud of what our staff, our agency, and the community partners have all been able to achieve this year together. And so with that, to enhance our understanding of the port's impact on our region, Mr. Jonathan Daniels, the Executive Director of the Maryland Port Administration, will provide us with an overview of its far-reaching effects.
Good morning. Oh, come on now. Good morning. All right. Who was here last year? Raise your hand. All right. Fantastic. Do you all remember how cold it was when you walked in last year? All right. Do you all know how cold it was this morning when you walked in? You threw some snow in there. What's going to happen next year at this time? Quick question. Those that are not members of any of the committees, again, you raise your hand. Raise your hand again, please. All right, Holly, grab all of their names. Make sure that all of them are on a committee before they leave here. I think what that does, it points to just the interest of what we do here. It points to the importance of what we do here. And there's some words as Holly was walking through this morning, that really started to come to me, not with just what you do, but how impactful they are in making sure that the Port of Baltimore continues to be successful, sustainable, resilient, innovative, beneficial. Words that we, through the DMMP program, use day in and day out. In many industries, they are overused. I don't think in many respects we use them enough. But it does set the path and set the stage for allowing, through the DMMP and the success that all of you participate in and year out, allowing for the port to be successful and ultimately allowing us the opportunity to meet our mission and be an economic catalyst for the region and for the state as a whole. My gosh, what changes occur in a year? Last year at this time, we were standing up here, and all of us had been certainly dealing with the shock of what happened the morning of March 26th of 2024, reeling from the fact that the port itself, the region, the state, would never be the same. And I remember that was one of the thoughts as I was driving in that morning. My job was never going to be the same, not just that day, but for the entirety of my time being here and moving forward. No strategic development, no strategic plan, no driven commercial opportunity would ever be in place again without at least understanding the impact of what occurred that fateful morning. Not only did we lose 6 people, 6 Marylanders, as the governor talks about Always. It's always about the people first. But it would be the way in which it would change the way in which we do business going forward. And in many respects, it would actually enhance our reputation as a region that continues to be resilient and will not allow ourselves to be cast aside because of a single event. Now, that event itself, while local in nature, has international implications. The amount of calls that I had on a global basis from our stakeholder meetings with somewhere between 200 and 400 people to the individual meetings that we would have, oftentimes at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which meant it was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning in Taipei. It was late in the afternoon or early evening in Geneva, Switzerland. They all needed to understand the direction that we were moving because our decisions were ultimately impacting their business decisions. So where do we stand now? Again, we're still dealing and reeling from what happened that morning, but we continue to make progress. And that was one of the first questions that I had when I went down last year for the budget process down in Annapolis. Not only do we want to know and have you justify what you are requesting for next year, but tell us how you are recovering. Tell us about the rebound. What have we lost and what are we going to lose long term? I will tell you that I never thought last year that I would be able to stand here today and say that the numbers going through 2025, through several of our business lines, in fact, will surpass 2023, which was the record year for the Port of Baltimore, with more than 52 million tons moved across our docks, with more than 1.1 million TEUs moving across our Seagirt Marine Terminal, with nearly 850,000 vehicles and light trucks moving over the docks as well. Many of those business lines at the end of 2025 will show that not only have we rebounded and recovered, but we have surpassed. We utilize that time in working with our partners, with the terminal operators, with the shippers and the carriers, to identify opportunities, to identify options that would allow us the opportunity and allow them the opportunity to make good on the promises that they made when we asked them, when the channel opens up, you need to come back. And while we thank many of my counterparts in Virginia, Wilmington, Philadelphia, New York, Wilmington, North Carolina, all the way down into Savannah and Brunswick, while we thank them for assisting us in ways in which allowed for a supply chain to be maintained with a minimal amount of disruption, we made it very clear from day one, when the channel opens up, we want our damn cargo back. Ladies and gentlemen, it's back. But that's only part of the story. Because we can sit here and we can talk about records, and in many respects, whether it's football, basketball, any sport, or whether it's ports, you're judged by the numbers. But what a lot of people don't understand is what programmatic issues are out there that occur oftentimes behind the scenes that allow you the opportunity to be successful. And the work that you all do in making sure that our channels are maintained at 50 feet, allowing us the opportunity to plan not only 20 years into the future, but even further beyond that, is allowing our partners, the carriers that are making billion-dollar investments in new technology, innovative ship designs, that they are going to be able to use our channels well into the future. And in a meeting that we had with the leaders of one of our larger carriers, in fact, they bring the largest vessels into the port right now. Baltimore will be the cornerstone of their East Coast operations. And one of the reasons why they're going from a 15,300 TEU vessel to more than a 16,000 TEU vessel. If we did not have the level of infrastructure available, the depth in our channels, and a plan of action that allows them the opportunity to plan into the future, they would look at it very differently. Virginia becomes number one, New York becomes number one, Savannah, Charleston, all of those competitive ports. But the depth is only part of the story. How do we, through our actions, leave an environment that's even better for the future? Many of us will not live to see what occurs with the benefits of the DMMP program into the future. And while that sounds a little bit harsh, it's the reality of making sure that what we're doing is leaving a better environment for our children, for our grandchildren, and to make sure that the economy and the environment can coexist together, that both can grow, both can enhance the region, that the environment itself is a part of our economy. Reading this morning just how some of the issues impacting the Chesapeake Bay, it's not just those issues that are impacting how clean the bay is and the extended time it's going to take to be able to meet those guidelines, but what's it mean to our economy? What's it mean to go across the harbor here and sit down at Nick's and enjoy a meal? We do it now and we don't think about it. This group thinks about it. This group plans, and this group executes. And without this group, without navigation, innovation, stewardship, without that, we cannot be successful in delivering upon our mission, not only to make sure that we enhance and execute a strategy of waterborne commerce, but that we serve our role as an economic development agency with transportation and waterborne transportation at its core, which means there's not a single member of my staff that moves a single piece of cargo across the dock. I can't remember the last time I saw Bob Monroe down on the dock moving cargo from ship to shore. I'd love to see it. Holly will be right next to him. Jennifer, you can join in as well. And with weather like today, when the work continues to go on, we can't take the work that they do for granted. But our role is to make sure that the environment and the atmosphere is conducive to the private sector coming in, hiring the men and women of the ILA, hiring the agents, doing the work that's necessary to create jobs. And part of creating that environment is to make sure that the DMMP program is successful, so that when Evergreen brings a 16,000 TEU vessel in late 2026 and early 2027, they have no concerns about the ability to be able to traverse our channels, to be able to dock at our terminals, to be able to move the cargo, load the cargo, and depart. As easy as that sounds, not all ports are able to deliver on that. The Port of Baltimore can and does. Not just by the labor that occurs, the lifting, the moving, the grinding that's necessary. That's what people see day in and day out. But it's the delivery of a program like DMMP, which, while it is behind the scenes, is the critical component for our ability to be able to deliver consistency, resiliency, sustainability, the benefits. And that's all bound by science and innovation. That's all the role that you have taken on to allow us the opportunity to be able to deliver an effective Port of Baltimore. Now, I think I said this last year, but I would be remiss if I didn't again. If you want to find out how important a piece of infrastructure is to an economy, take it out for a period of time. Now, I used to talk about that when I was down at Port Everglades, the third busiest cruise home port in the world. As far as the hospitality and tourism industry was concerned, pull crews out for a period of time, and you realize how important the flow of people, the flow of resources, the amount of people that depend on that for their livelihood. We found that out that morning. We found out because those people that went home the evening of the 25th woke up the next morning and found out that the shifts that they had been called into the night before no longer existed. And while our channels closed down, our port did not close down. We had men and women of the ILA at the Seagirt Terminal doing maintenance, doing work that was necessary so when we did open up again, that we would be ready. And other work that did not stop was making sure that the DMMP program continued its planning process, continued the implementation process, because we needed to make sure that the channels not only were open, but that they would be able to deliver on a promise that is made to all of them. We have channels that are passable, viable, and allow us the opportunity to maintain a level that brings in some of the largest vessels that ply the waters anywhere in the world. Now, someone talked to me probably about a month or two ago and said, how would you like to bring in, if you could, because of air draft restrictions, but if you could bring in a 21 or 22,000 TEU vessel, would you want to do that? I looked at him, I said, you know what, that would be so cool to look out at the dock and see a vessel of that magnitude. And oftentimes people talk about being big ship ready. Listen, 15,000 TEUs is a damn big ship. It's about being right ship ready as much as anything. It's about not overwhelming the infrastructure, but using the resources that we have. Now, some of the resources and some of the things that are in place restrict us. We'll work through that. We'll continue to work through that. But we will be ready for Evergreen's next generation vessel. We have been for this long period of time. They just celebrated 50 years of calling the Port of Baltimore. I was happy to stand at the podium and talk to them about the fact that we look forward to celebrating the 100th anniversary. Now, many of us won't be here during that period of time, but it's up to us to set the stage for that celebration to occur 50 years from now, uninterrupted as much as is possible with everything that we can control. We're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to deliver, but we have to deliver it together. We have to do it in a sustainable, sensitive manner, backed by the best science that is available, and allowing us the opportunity to tell the story that while many people look at a very destructive process, we see one that allows us the opportunity to be able to grow and to restore barrier islands, to be able to develop an innovative program utilizing the material in an effective and a commercial way to be able to support additional development and construction in the region. It's not just about scoop and place. It's a planning scoop and place. But what's it mean to place? It's setting the stage and creating the model such as Poplar Island. It's looking at making sure that we have the next 40 years of placement in our Chesapeake Bay channels in a way that returns the environment back to the way it was in many ways years ago. It's about shoreline protection. And it's about delivering on a promise that when we take positions within those committees, we're doing it for a reason. All of us are busy. but the fact that you are taking that time to engage in a program that is so important, not just to the port, but to the state and to the 37 states that receive and send products through the Port of Baltimore. We found out during that fateful morning that this truly is America's port. Not just because it goes back to 1706, more than 300 years old. We have an incredible history here. But it's about setting the stage and making sure that we develop the programs and do it in a way that ensure the next 300 years are even more successful than they are right now, and that they have been. We've been resilient. We also make sure that we properly plan. And that plan may veer off just a little bit because you have events that occur that you just can't plan and anticipate for. But that first week, as I sat down with my staff and sat down with the directors, and at the end of the meetings, their heads were low. There was still certainly some unknown that was going through their minds. And when I asked the question, who is upset over the fact that the Francis Scott Key Bridge is in the river? All of them raised their hands. I said, why? You can be upset, but why are you upset? It's already happened. You can't do anything about that. You will not be judged by the events of that bridge going in the water. You will be judged by the way in which you respond to that. This is a port that has responded very well, with record numbers in 2025. And you're going to read in the next few weeks a couple of new contracts that are coming on place fairly soon that are going to show that we continue to grow across all of our business lines. Has anybody here ever sailed out of Baltimore on a cruise? Raise your hand. All right, we have a couple here that have done that. You're going to have some new options pretty soon that you're going to be reading about. 70% of all the people that move through our Cruise Maryland terminal are from outside the state of Maryland. 37 states are fed by the actions of our docks. And the importance of our channel, not just for the economy of the state of Maryland, it cannot be overstated. But I'll finish on this, because one of the first calls that I got that morning of the 26th was from the president and CEO of Alcoa. All right, so I get a unknown number that flashes across my screen. And that morning, I'd already spoken with the Coast Guard, had spoken with my staff, had spoken certainly with the governor's office, with the secretary's office, Army Corps of Engineers, everybody. What can we do? What do we need to do? The president and CEO of Alcoa was absolutely up in arms about what he was going to do to be able to support his aluminum smelter in Messina, New York. Has anybody ever been to Messina, New York? What's in Messina? That's it. Alcoa and one of the locks for the St. Lawrence Seaway. So his worry certainly started out with the fact that we need our alumina, which is on a vessel on its way to Baltimore from Brazil. Alumina is a primary component in the smelting operation. So Messina, New York, way up on the top of upstate New York, they ship their alumina through the Hawkins Point facility through the Port of Baltimore. And while he was absolutely up in arms on what he was going to do, because when a smelter goes cold, the starting price is $100 million to open it back up again. And he said, I don't make enough off of that mill to open it up again if it goes cold. But more than anything, it's about the people that work at that Alcoa facility, because if that facility goes down, Messina dies as a community. Messina, New York is linked to the Port of Baltimore. The nation itself is linked to the Port of Baltimore. You, through your work and through the DMMP program and the planning that's facilitated and the program that is implemented, you allow that to happen. You impact communities. You impact livelihood. That can't be overstated. I thank you for the work that you do. I thank you in advance, because it's not going to get easier. As funding begins to move elsewhere, as we have problems now with the federal government, grant programs, planning, everything's a little bit off. I have never, in my 30 years of port development, I've never seen and been involved in headwinds like this on the port industry. So it's going to get more challenging. And as our obligations to make sure that we deliver a clean environment continue to get more strict, it's going to get more difficult for us to do our job. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here with you this morning. It's an absolute pleasure. It was cold last year. It's snowy this year. Let's sun and warm next year, please, a little bit. But again, I look forward to being able to work with you next year when we talk about continued progress, continued growth, and we move beyond the issues of panic that occurred that particular morning to continuing just to build and to plan for the future. And you are a central component of that. With that, again, thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here this morning. Those of you that did brave the weather, thank you for being here. And we look forward to a great morning celebrating the success of what you have accomplished in the last year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Daniels. I would now like to introduce Darren Swift, the Deputy Director of the Office of Navigation, Innovation, and Stewardship, who will highlight key milestones from the 2025 Dredged Material Management Program's annual report. Darren.
Thank you, Holly. And now I have the hard task of speaking after Jonathan Daniels just spoke. So again, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2025 Dredged Material Management Annual Meeting. And thank you all for your continued support of this program. Again, my name is Darren Swift, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Office of Navigation, Innovation, and Stewardship. And we should all be proud of the accomplishments this year, and I encourage everyone to read the 2025 annual report. We spent a lot of time internally working on this report. It is posted on our webpage. You can also find copies available at the registration table. And it provides a comprehensive details across all priority areas, including policy, funding, planning, operations, innovation, and stakeholder engagement. And today I'll be focusing on the highlights that best capture our theme this year of stewardship fueled by science. And also, as you can see here on the screen now, I'll be sharing images of our projects and our achievements this year to illustrate the scale and impact of our work this year. Also, I would also like to highlight the team members of the Office of Navigation, Innovation, and Stewardship. I've worked for MDOT agencies. It would be two now. I worked at SHA and now here at MPA for over 30 years, and I will say I have the pleasure of working with this team. This team is highly dedicated, and we're 14 strong. So there's a lot of work that goes through every year. We're very dedicated, very hardworking, and they believe in the mission of MPA as well as the office. So everything I'm going to talk about today, this could not have happened without our office and our team, and obviously also with our consultants. And I'm not even going to start naming consultants because I'm sure I'm going to forget somebody, and I'll get a nasty email or somebody's going to confront me after this. So. Let's move into our planning for long-term capacity and resilience. The rolling 20-year capacity planning effort reflects a science-driven approach that ensures dredged material placement capacity while building resiliency for natural habitats, our communities, and all the DMMP sites through the state fiscal year 2045. So let's take a look at harbor placement sites where we continue to expand the dredged material containment facilities, or the DMCFs, explore new dredged material management methods, and also the start of the future of our program of managing harbor dredge material innovative reuse. At our Cox Creek facility, the expansion elevation of plus 60 was completed in 2024. However, we continue to plan for plus 80. We're advancing that design and our preliminary engineering work. And also, we've just advertised a contract for further excavation of the upland cell. We have about 300,000 cubic yards, or plus or minus or so, of the upland to maximize their capacity there at that site. At Masonville, we completed the construction for plus 30 this year, and that was also ahead of schedule. And the design for plus 42 has been completed. And we should be advertising a contract here very soon and be moving into construction, say, in mid-2026 or in the summer of 2026. Both plus 80 and 42 would be the final elevations of both those dredge material containment facilities. We also, the video went pretty quick, but we also explored a new method of managing dredge material this year by diverting dredge material directly into geotubes. And we have now named that process the DIG process. We love acronyms, being a government agency, so we challenge ourselves there to come up with that. So we had to dredge, or MPA had to dredge between Secret Marine Terminal and Dundalk Marine Terminal, which that body of water is Colgate Creek. We had limited capacity in order to manage that material, and that project produced a little over 165,000 cubic yards of material. So we were looking at alternate ways to manage that material, and that's when we came up with, and you can see on the video here, it's very impressive to see the scale. We offloaded that material straight into geotubes to dewater that and dry that material to make it available for innovative reuse. And we have some very interesting projects in the Baltimore metro area that we will believe will be supplying that material to when it's fully dried. Unfortunately, I would say right at this point to go over to Kelvin at the IR table, but he is not feeling well today. I'm sure he's watching right now at home, but you can catch me after the meeting, and I can talk a little bit more about those IR opportunities with the Colgate Creek material. And if you have any questions or you want further conversation, please go see Bertrand at our Cox Creek expanded table, and he can talk to you more about those expansion projects that are occurring at our harbor DMCFs. Now, looking at the future of harbor dredge material management is our innovative reuse program. We really believe we are primed to put this into action now and make innovative reuse a reality and a practicing method for managing dredge material moving forward. To the point of that we are currently actively planning to start our recovery efforts this year by starting the 5-year scale-up period in this fiscal year. The goal is to recover a total of 1.2 million cubic yards over the next 5 years from the Cox Creek DMCF. Also, we've updated our innovative and beneficial use strategy from 2020. We've accomplished a lot of those recommendations, and that new strategy was just approved by the executive committee in a meeting in late October. And we're also wrapping up our research and development phase. We have the last 2 projects out of 9 that will be, one will present in February and the other one will present in March of next year, and that will complete our research and development projects. And it's from these projects that we're really seeing what that scale-up possibility is. These were all proof of concept projects, and from there, part of one of the aspects was of scalability. We're seeing a lot of promise in those projects that we've executed through that research and development RFP. We've also, we also secured a material specification with State Highway Administration as well, and this just furthers more opportunity for innovative reuse of dredge material. We made progress at our STAR facility, or the Cox Creek Sediment Technology and Reuse Facility. We are moving through the remediation phase, and this facility will be a dedicated industrial scale part processing site for private industry to reclaim capacity from the Cox Creek DMCF to ensure MPA has a rolling 20-year plan for harbor dredge material. Part of that, of how we're going to get there, will be in September, early September, we advertised a request for information for the STAR facility, and we have been receiving great interest since advertising that RFI. And that RFI will close here on December 19th. Again, we're very excited about the Innovative Reuse Program. Please come in. You can grab me after the meeting, and we can talk further about all these great initiatives that we are doing through the Innovative Reuse Program. So just like Cox Creek Star Facility represents the long-term future of management of harbor dredge material through innovative reuse, the Mid-Bay projects serve the same role for Maryland Chesapeake Bay Approach Channel material, ensuring capacity, resilience, and restoration at scale. So the Mid-Chesapeake Bay Island Ecosystem Restoration Project, also known as the Mid-Bay Project, is a top priority for the Maryland Port Administration. It's one of the clearest examples of stewardship fueled by science, where ecosystem restoration, dredge material management, and stakeholder engagement converge. The Mid-Bay Project is 2 islands located in Dorchester County and are being constructed near the remnants of James Island and Barron Island. The project will ensure the capacity of Maryland Bay Channel material, providing placement for the next 30 plus years. And this project is more than placement capacity. It's the next generation of leadership and beneficial use that the Maryland Port Administration and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers started with Poplar Island, which is an international model for beneficial use of dredge material for restoration. Just like at Poplar, the restored islands will provide over 2,000 acres of restored remote island habitat, including 1,200 acres of tidal wetlands. In early 2025, approximately $72 million in federal funding was secured, ensuring the project could advance on time. At Barron Island, Phase 1 construction has been completed. Phase 2 is currently underway, with the first inflow of material from the Honga River in 2026 through 2027. James Island is in Phase 1 design is complete, and MPA has been working hard this year to obtain the necessary permits for construction, and just recently received the draft permit review for review. I would like to say a big thank you to the Maryland Department of Environment for your ongoing collaboration, support of this project, which is critical to the state of Maryland. We are all excited about what's to come and know that continued stewardship will be required to maintain the support needed at the state, federal, and local levels. Before I move into community engagement, please go see Amanda and her team over at the Mid-Bay table, the Poplar Mid-Bay table, to learn more about our island restoration projects. So we spend a lot of our time talking about engineering, permitting, cubic yards of dredge material, but that's only half the story. People and communities are central to shaping our operations and sustaining the Dredged Material Management Program's impact. Our investments in people through education, access, and workforce development are building long-term capacity in the communities that we serve. In 2025, the Maryland Port Administration hosted over 600 events and engaged over 18,000 community members. Our education program reached over 11,000 students, including 469 class groups. It's programs like the Youth Birding Camp and the Masonville Cove Links Wild STEM Internship Program continue to inspire young people to connect with the natural world and maybe see themselves in this work in the future. For the 7th time, the Maryland Port Administration collaborated with the Baltimore Port Alliance to host a hiring and career expo. And this year's event was the largest to date, with over 300 job seekers and 43 employers in attendance. At Masonville Cove, we celebrated the designation of a Chesapeake Gateway Network site, linking the site to national platform for conservation and heritage. We also continue to grow our Friends of Stewardship groups at Masonville and Hart Miller Island, with new volunteers, peer learning visits, and a joint proposal to support a dedicated coordinator for both sites. And at our Mid-Bay Island restoration projects, building community relationships is important because of the generational project means that we'll be long-term neighbors with our stakeholders in that area. The Mid-Bay Community Stakeholder Group is actively shaping the outreach efforts, helping build long-term relationships in the region. These are the kind of efforts that just don't educate, they ensure that the benefits of our work are shared and that our communities have a real seat at the table. Please find Katrina or Danielle if you want to learn more about our outreach and education programs. And obviously none of this could have, none of the items that I've mentioned so far, like our placement site expansions, innovative reuse, island restoration projects, community engagement programs, could have not have happened without policy and funding. Our ability to deliver long-term projects is strengthened by smart policy and political support. It's made possible through strong partnerships with federal agencies, the Maryland Congressional Delegation, and many of you that are in this room today. In 2025, we showcased the benefits of our work and built sustained support through engagement such as tours with the Assistant Secretary of the Army of Civil Works, the Maryland Delegation and their staff, and the Chesapeake Bay Commission members. Those partnerships delivered federal funding passed in January of 2025, authorizing the construction of Seagirt Loop Channel and expediting the Mid-Bay project. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers federal fiscal year 2025 budget and work plan included over $187 million in federal appropriations for annual dredging and associated activities. None of this work happens in a vacuum, and it's not insulated from the budget constraints that are currently being felt throughout the state and region. We heard those themes earlier. These realities make it more important than ever to keep advocating for what works. Science-informed, community-supported, cost-effective solutions that deliver co-benefits. So in closing, the 2025 annual report tells a story of momentum, but more important than that, it tells a story of connection between science and policy, between infrastructure and education, between the port and the people that it serves. These milestones weren't achieved in silos. They were a product of science-fueled strategy, long-term partnerships, and a deep public engagement. As we look ahead, our commitment remains clear: to manage dredged material responsibly, grow with intention, and ensure the Port of Baltimore continues to be a model for sustainable, resilient dredged material management. Thank you for being a part of this effort. Together, we're just not maintaining shipping channels, we're building a future that is resilient, equitable, and rooted in stewardship. Now, there should be another slide coming up here soon. Okay, so we all see the QR code, and I didn't want to put this on the first slide because then everybody would get their phones out. But if you get your phone out, and even I'll say for our audience at home, that QR code will link you right to our annual report. So if you want to save a few trees and see it virtually or digitally, you can use that QR code that's on the screen. So that is all of my presentation, and I'll invite Holly to come back and we can take any questions.
Great job, Darren. All right, so are there any questions for what Darren presented on, the annual report, anything that you've heard so far today? I want to just pause here before we move into the next part of our agenda. If you do have any questions, just raise your hand. We can take your questions. If not, I'm not seeing any questions. We will go ahead and move on. Go ahead. Yes.
I'm curious about the Cox Creek facility and the geotube placement. So how many yards of material was that? And was it having water for beneficial or innovative?
Okay, great question. Thanks, Chris. It was roughly about 165,000 cubic yards. We saw in that video of the large geotube field. Some of those in our IR opportunities, we have to close out our Hawkins Point South Cell DMCF. We were going to use some material for that. With our expansion project going to plus 42 at Masonville, I think we're going to place some material in the Kurt Iron Slip. And then incorporate that into the construction, and then also like right across the river here with the Baltimore Peninsula project, we've been in conversation with them, and they need a lot of fill material. So we're very hopeful that we can walk all those things out, and then we'll be able to innovatively reuse all 165,000 cubic yards.
And I just want to repeat what the question was so that folks can hear. I'm sorry. That he just was curious about the geotube project, what the cubic yardage was for that project, and where the plan was for the material to go.
Good.
Okay. If there are no other questions, thank you so much, Darren. You did a great job with our annual report. Again, please, we encourage you to read the report. It's online. There's a couple of copies up front. And also in your packets of information that we provided for you today, there is a short overview. It's a 2-page overview of the annual report, so you can check out some of the highlights of the 2025 year. So with that, we're going to move on to our next agenda item. And today we're very excited to host a panel discussion that's titled Science and Stakeholder Voices, featuring community members sharing their experiences with MPA and discussing how scientific connection fosters a strong commitment to stewardship. So our panelists can come up now. And as they're taking their seats and getting settled up on the stage, I'm going to provide a little bit of context for our discussion. So managing dredged material is complex, and it impacts many people, communities, and organizations. MPA maintains a science-based, community-oriented approach to dredged material management in order to help enhance ecosystems. To bring this to life, we've organized a panel that focuses on how the port collaborates with scientific experts, community members, and workforce development initiatives to benefit our communities, economy, and the environment. Our diverse group of panelists will share their experiences of engaging with the DMMP and the port. Following their presentations, we'll hold an extended Q&A session, allowing you to learn more about the topics that were discussed. Now that our panelists and our moderator are all settled up on stage, I would now like to introduce Danielle Fisher, the Outreach Coordinator in the Office of Navigation, Innovation, and Stewardship, who will facilitate our panel discussion.
Thanks, Holly. Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and welcome again. Thank you for coming out in the snow. As Holly mentioned, my name is Danielle Fisher. I'm the Outreach Coordinator with the Maryland Port Administration's Office of Navigation, Innovation, and Stewardship. If that is a mouthful, you can also refer to us as NIS. I will continue Theron's theme of acronyms, and I just want to establish we're all on the same page. Maryland Port Administration, MPA, Dredged Material Management Program, DMMP. Those are two you'll hear throughout this panel. I am excited and honored to have the opportunity to guide us through a very special discussion panel, and I hope that you find it insightful. We've put together a great group of panelists, each with an individual story that illustrates the impact of the port from their unique perspectives. Allow me to welcome our panelists, and I will start with Paul, the chair of our Hart Miller Island Citizens Oversight Committee, one of the DMMP's governor-appointed committees. Paul started the Friends of Hart Miller Island and can share insight from his 25-year involvement as a citizen with the DMMP. Welcome, Paul.
Hello.
Next to Paul, we have Dr. Lisa Wanger. She is a professor of environmental economics at the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science. She has been heavily involved in scientifically assessing environmental and economic impacts related to the work of the DMMP. Welcome, Lisa. And last but never least, Kadia Ndiaye is an education professional with a wide spectrum of expertise. She plays a pivotal role as the intern mentor for the Masonville Cove Links Wild STEM internship, connecting workforce development opportunities with new audiences through real-life application. Welcome, Kadia. And as someone who loves a good story, I'm thrilled to tell you today we will not be handing out just statistics. What you will hear are real examples of the port and its impact, and to Mr. Daniels' point, what it means to place dredged material, how MPA is restoring habitat, strengthening communities, creating jobs, developing the body of scientific knowledge, as well as building a sustainable future. So let's dive in. I'll start with Paul, and before we do, I'll give you a little background. Paul has been a member of the Hart Miller Island Citizens Oversight Committee for 25 years and the chairperson for the last 8 years. In 2022, he founded the Friends of Hart Miller Island, whose mission is to promote and enhance Hart Miller and Pleasure Island State Park as a resource that enhances the natural, economic, educational, recreational, health benefits, and overall quality of life for current and future generations. In addition, Paul is a licensed clinical social worker with a master's degree in social work from the University of Maryland at Baltimore. He has spent over 50 years working across a variety of roles in child welfare, children's mental health, healthcare, and developmental disabilities. Paul has dedicated over 40 years to the Kennedy Krieger Institute, where he directs a program for children with special needs in foster care. Paul lives on the water in Middle River with his wife, Patrice, of 37 years, and they have 2 sons and 2 granddaughters. Paul, tell us about your experience with community port collaboration.
Well, let me start. I'm going to go off script a little bit. I'm going to build on some of what Darren was saying in terms of commitment, because I've never met in my career, in my life, a more committed group of people than from MPA. And I was talking to Holly earlier. It's like a culture. It's always existed, no matter who's at the table, and I've seen different people at the table. The one person who's been at the table the whole time is Dave Bibbo. And I think I talked to Dave more than my wife, okay? The only difference is he has to be patient. Okay, so I'll start there. I can pull this up. Yeah. When I first became involved with the Citizens Oversight Committee, I didn't realize how collaboration between the community and the port would be shaping HMI. But the current spirit and trust and partnership has grown over the years due to the challenges and the differences. HMI has always been a special spot for me and for the community, folks who live there, recreate there, and work along the bay. The idea of using dredged material from the Baltimore shipping channel, how many years ago, 40 years ago, to rebuild an island raised serious questions about the environmental impacts, water quality, and the community trust. But over the years, I have to say, I have witnessed how open, sustained dialogue between the port and the public has turned my skepticism into stewardship and those in the community. It's through the COC that residents, scientists, community members, organizations, agency representatives, environmental advocates, we all sit at the same table. We listen, we question, and we ultimately hold each other accountable. That transparency and mutual respect has built something I think is rare, which is really true trust. The results are visible. Is it up there? Yeah, it's up there. Hart Miller has transformed into a living, thriving wildlife habitat, a recreational treasure, and a living example of beneficial reuse done right. As the chair of the Friends of Hart Miller Island, I've seen how this collaboration has extended far beyond the policy discussions. I see volunteers, families, school groups, exploring trails, observing migratory birds, learning how restoration can heal both the ecosystem and communities. Every time I walk the trails and shorelines, I'm reminded that this is a success story, okay? And it didn't happen by accident, okay? It happened because people came together and shared a shared vision about the bay. So community and port collaboration, believe me, is not always easy, okay? We've come a long way. We still have a ways to go. I'm glad to see some of this information that's in the summary there for Hart Miller Island. So, but I continue to be optimistic because I know that patience, perseverance, and willingness to understand each other's perspective is going to get where we need to be. You only have to visit the island and see what's possible, and possible when we treat environmental stewardship as a shared responsibility. So for me, the true legacy of the work is not just restoration and preservation of land, but restoration and preservation of relationships and relationships between the port and the people. So we have a table over there. Help yourself. Thank you, Danielle. And thank you for this opportunity. I'm really humbled by the expert panel. I'm less than that. So
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. And thank you for sharing such a sincere reflection on how the team at Hart Miller Island and the Maryland Port Administration have worked together to overcome early concerns about dredged material placement as a restoration option, as well as how we continue to work together to better understand and respond to the needs at Hart Miller Island. Now, moving away from MPA's site partnerships and transitioning to our scientific collaborations, I'd love to hear from Lisa. And before I do, I'll give you a little background. Dr. Lisa Wanger is a research professor of environmental economics and decision science at the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science. She is also a lifelong Maryland resident with over 25 years of experience evaluating the costs, benefits, risks of environmental restoration. She specializes in applying economic and ecological models to guide real-world decisions. Her research spans global issues, but is deeply rooted in Maryland and the Chesapeake Bay, where she has worked extensively with MPA's DMMP. In that work, Dr. Wanger has conducted economic analysis that help the Port of Baltimore use resources efficiently while enhancing environmental and social benefits, including evaluating restoration options, nature-based flood risk management strategies, and infrastructure investments. Dr. Wanger also serves on numerous government and non-government science advisory boards, including the California Delta Independent Science Board, and previously chaired the Chesapeake Bay Program's Scientific Technical Advisory Committee. Lisa, would you share your perspective on how science impacts environmental stewardship?
Thank you, Danielle. And I'd just like to start not by talking about how many years I've known Dave Bibbo, but instead saying that I never expected to be an economist. So I really started out with an interest in ecology and social issues, but I began to understand that environmental economics in particular was really a way to blend those concerns. You can bring together many perspectives and really look at issues from multiple perspectives to make good decisions. So those powerful tools are what drew me to the science. And my colleague Liz Price, who's in the audience, and many of you know, and I have been implementing these tools for over 20 years in collaboration with the MPA and the DMMP. Thank you for letting me use those acronyms. And this research has really served as a great applied lab for our research because we're not really ivory tower type of academics. We really like to take these tools out into the real world. And this partnership works, I think, particularly well because the Maryland Port Administration understands that economic development, environmental responsibility, and social responsibility all go hand in hand, and that we never had to make compromises because that is our perspective and that's also their perspective. So I know that economics can sound abstract, but I just want people to understand it's really a way to support transparent and accountable decisions. And the questions we're asking is, what are the trade-offs of making these choices? Who benefits? Who doesn't? And how can we use our resources most efficiently and fairly? So I'll give you a little example of that. As we've heard, the port is a critical economic anchor for Maryland and beyond. And the channels must be dredged to keep the port competitive. And our work has addressed, what should we do with that stuff? And in the early days of the program, the decisions were primarily framed as what minimizes costs or where do we have enough capacity. But really through the input of stakeholders, that has really evolved into, hey, this is a resource. How can we use it to promote restoration, shoreline protection, environmental benefits? So it really, I have seen that shift in my career. I've been here almost as long as Dave Bibbo. Okay, so have any of you wondered, how did we end up with the Mid-Bay Island project? How did we pick that project? I only see a few people in the room who were part of that long decision-making process. So here's the story. Many years ago, we supported a detailed, multi-year process comparing all the beneficial use options that anyone could think of, honestly. We put everything on the table and we said, okay, let's take a look at these options. And we engaged a broad stakeholder group that included government agencies, natural resource agencies, regulatory agencies, environmental nonprofits. Chesapeake Bay Foundation was at the table, and a ton of technical experts, as Darren alluded to. They're still involved. And that group compared 10 main categories. Are we going to put this on the land, in the ocean? Are we going to do environmental restoration? Are we going to make products like bricks out of it? All those things. And these projects were screened using a series of environmental indicators, and also how much capacity. And then we also brought in the idea of risk. And a representative group sat down and said, okay, technically what's risky? Are these projects going to succeed? Or also politically, are they risky? Do people disagree about the risks of these projects? And so anything that was really risky got taken off the table. And then we moved forward with analyzing the remainder. And we looked at them from an economic perspective, which is cost effectiveness. But we didn't try to put all these different benefits in dollars. Instead, we used a benefit index, and we said, okay, these different projects have different benefits measured in kind of different units than dollars. And we compared that to the costs, and you can kind of plot them. You get this plot. And what you're looking for is low cost, high benefit. That's everyone's favorite. But then you can also have high cost, high benefit, where the costs and benefits balance. And what really popped out was that James and Barren Island had really high cost effectiveness, particularly when lumped together. So that's how we ended up with that project. And so I hope this helps you see that economics is really kind of a team science and an integrative science. One of the things we did to support that project was to go out and talk to charter boat captains whose areas might be affected by the project, and we had them draw on maps, where do you like to take people fishing, and let's see if we can avoid those areas or at least minimize any impacts to those areas. So we're bringing in just all these different perspectives, including things like what property is protected, how many homes are disrupted if we do certain things, or protected, helped by this project. So, all of this goes into making safer, more sustainable choices and supporting MPA in their choices. And I just want to say, much like Paul brought up, I've just really enjoyed working with MPA, that they really do listen to the stakeholders and try to take their needs into consideration. And they also really welcome us academic partners, even if we sometimes have inconvenient truths for them. And so I just think it all leads to better adaptive management of how we're moving forward with the DMMP. And also, if you want to know more about any of the science from UMCs, we have a table in the back that is more examples of how our science has supported the MPA. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Lisa. And I'll reiterate that point. Hopefully, as you're hearing these stories, it is piquing your interest to either get involved or learn more. So I encourage you to talk to our subject matter experts that are in the room, visit the stations. And Lisa, that was such a clarifying account of how science and data creates a really important basis for MPA's efforts, turning what could be a challenge, capacity constraints, into opportunities for habitat restoration, resilience, and even recreation. So thank you for that. Alrighty, before we hear from Kadia and before she connects how these efforts create a bridge between our community partnerships and workforce development, allow me to share just a little background on her. Kadia NDI is an educator who specializes in family and consumer science, and she is dedicated to addressing the disparities impacting vulnerable communities. She is excellent at establishing and maintaining key working relationships with a variety of stakeholders. She also has strengths in recruiting, program management, database creation and maintenance, capacity building, training facilitation, and youth development. Kadia supports the Masonville Cove Links Wild STEM internship, and her duties include planning, program development, recruitment, intern recruitment, and support. She is also a family and consumer science teacher for Prince George's County Public Schools. And before she was with Ecologics and Teaching, Kadia worked for the Living Classrooms Foundation, wearing many hats, as our great educators tend to do. She ended her full-time work with the foundation as a program coordinator, and Kadia graduated from Morgan State University with a bachelor's in family and consumer science. She's also bilingual, speaking both English and French. Kadia, share with us your perspective on developing the next generation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Danielle. And it's a pleasure to spend my first snow day of the school year with you all here at the annual meeting. When I think about workforce development, especially in maritime and environmental fields, I think about access to mentors, access to the feeling that you belong in these spaces. And as a Wild STEM summer internship leader at Masonville Cove, I've seen firsthand how powerful that access can be. Each summer, we welcome a group of students to explore connections between science, community, and the Working Port of Baltimore. And it's been really nice. We've had an amazing group of students the last few summers from local HBCUs with all sorts of different majors. And many of them have grown up within sight of the harbor, but they haven't had the opportunity to step foot on a working terminal or to meet a ship pilot or collect data from the shoreline. Through hands-on learning, fieldwork, and behind-the-scenes experiences, we open the door to what a career in maritime and environmental sciences can look like, and more importantly, who it's for. One of the highlights for me is watching our interns' confidence grow. During our work with port partners and MPA staff, I can see their curiosity turn into ambition. They begin to ask questions, not just about the what of the work, but the how they can get there, how these paths exist, how their unique interests fit into a much larger picture. For many, it's the first time they've seen themselves reflected in a professional setting tied to water, the environment, and just the communities that they care about. One of the moments that always sticks with me every summer is when we go up to the World Trade Center and we get to spend some time with MPA staff, and just seeing our interns in the boardroom, seeing them in that space and how they start to take it in that this could be them one day, that they could be making some of these decisions. One of our interns last summer, Jermaine, said, "Any environment where I can be heard and listened to is one where I can grow and thrive." And we've also had other interns tell us how much of a uplifting and motivating experience the internship is. And some of our interns who never even thought about having a career in conservation start to think about it more. It piques their interest. And these reflections aren't really just like feel-good reflections. They're indicators of workforce alignment. They show us that young people see professionals who reflect their values and identities when they experience the port as a place of opportunity rather than distance. Their career trajectories begin to shift in those moments. The Wild STEM program isn't just about learning science. It's about preparing young people to take their place in Maryland's maritime future. By connecting classroom connections, real-world career experiences, and giving students the tools to navigate those opportunities, we're helping to build a diverse and passionate next generation of workers, scientists, and stewards. Seeing their growth each summer reminds me that workforce development starts long before an application. It starts with inspiration and community at Masonville Cove, and we're so proud to be a part of their journey.
Amazing. Thank you, Kadia. I've always admired the work that you do with the interns, so thank you for that. And thank you for sharing those powerful quotes and responses from the interns. I think it is a true testament of how the port connects maritime industry partners with community members all in an effort to support and grow our economy and grow the next generation of stewards and maritime industry professionals. I recall their visit to our office. We learned from them just as much as they learned from us. Alrighty, so we have heard unique individual stories from each of you, and I would like to bring your voices together in conversation and explore some of the bigger topics that you've brought up through your perspectives, which means I have questions for you guys. It's that time. I know you do. I know you have answers. My first question, what do you see as a common thread between these efforts? From habitat restoration to scientific advancement to workforce development. And Kadia, I think I'll pitch that one to you.
To me, when I think about the common thread, programs like WildSTEM really create exposure, and that exposure is so necessary to see how young people can make connections to understand where they fit in this environment. And that matters because many of the MPA projects are long-term projects, as we've mentioned before. Earlier today, I think Mr. Daniel said, leaving a better environment for our children. It's really important that we start our investment in young people early to have some sort of ownership of the work that's being done here. Because a lot of the people who will end up working in these initiatives, they're still in school. They haven't even graduated yet. And what I love about the WildSTEM program is that it not only teaches environmental concepts, but it gives students mentors and professional skills and real opportunities to contribute. It makes them feel like they have space, like they can take up space in these spaces. So the thread that connects all of this is empowerment. When we open the door early and give young people a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose, they don't just become future workers, they become future stewards who will help to sustain these efforts for generations.
Thank you. Paul, would you like to chime in? It looked like you wanted to chime in.
Oh, of course. I'm a chimer. No, I'm just at awe listening to Dia. I think the three are intertwined. I mean, you can't have one without the other. I really think it's important. And if we don't have a good workforce, if you don't have adequate workforce, you're not going to have the science, you're not going to have the restoration. So I think workforce is critical. I look at my work with the COC and Hart Miller. I mean, what created the trust and the transparency was the data. Without the data, without the science, I'm not going to, that's what I was looking for. That's what we were looking for. Prove to me. And then where we want to get is where Katia is, and getting folks out on that island. That's the shift from the COC to the Friends. We need to replicate some of the things, and I'm really eager to do some collaboration around that. So.
Thank you both. I think an interesting theme that you brought up is how data has expanded both youth possibilities for what they can do in a maritime industry, what can be done, as well as expanding community members' possibility and belief in what can be done through this operation that you may not think of if you're not involved. So thank you both for those responses. Next question. How do you feel these commitments reflect MPA's commitment to stewardship or science, while balancing the need to keep the port open? As we know, it is an economic engine for the state of Maryland. And Lisa, I'll start with you.
Thank you. Yes, I think what I've seen, as the part of representing the creators of science here, is there really is a commitment to supporting the science we need to deliver on the goals. And I'll just give an example from Poplar Island, and I'm sure some people in the room know about this, but one of the major benefits of Poplar Island is bird nesting habitat. So, MPA could have just built the island, put in the right vegetation and walked away, but they kept looking, is it working? And they found out that a lot of the early nests, the first year that the birds were laying their nests, a lot of the eggs were being destroyed. And people had theories, maybe some raccoons got over, what is going on? And they invested in the science to discover that it was other birds killing the eggs. And so they realized, they did a couple things in the short, they did a lot of things in the short term, but the long-term goal had to do with vegetation management, and they figured all that out, and they invested in the adaptive management. And honestly, it's one of the best uses of adaptive management I've ever seen.
Amazing. Thank you. Oh, Paul, you.
Yeah, I really do think, like I said earlier, I think all decisions in life maybe need to be data-driven. I mean, I come from a soft profession, social work, but we have evidence-based practice. If my program doesn't work, we should be doing something else. So I think all decisions really need to be based in science to create that transparency. So I think that's key. That's absolutely key, and I would come back to that. So.
Thank you, and that's a great point, Paul and Lisa. Thank you for sharing that interesting story. I think some of us may have not known that. I know our birders are especially happy to hear that we figured out how to save those nests at Poplar Island. If you recall from Darren's slides, at many of our, or I'll say all of our MPA sites, we have over 200 species of birds that have been seen. So another testament.
Can I jump in again?
Yeah.
Because, you gave me a microphone. You should know better. You should know better.
Oh, I asked them if we could only have 3.
No, that's okay. Well, that's okay. That's okay, because I really do think that, one of the things we learned recently with the project from Trade Point Atlantic was that, you have to make data current. You have to keep people on their toes. You have to remind. There's generations behind me, and we have to keep the data current, science current, and I have to applaud the work that MPA is doing. Katrina and Danielle with the scoop. I think it's really. I think that's, because we can't let the science get stale.
Agreed. Do I have time for one more question before? Okay. So I'll ask one more question of our panelists before I turn it over to the audience. How do we see these initiatives evolving in the next few years? Where are the big opportunities in the next 1 to 3 years? And I'll start with Kadia.
I think we have an opportunity here to continue to make space for the next generation of people coming up who are going to be adding to this work or doing this work. I tell my students all the time that, you don't need to know what you want to do in the future right now, because the job that you're going to have in the future, it might not even exist yet. So I think it's really important for us to just make space for students to feel like they belong in these spaces, that there is an opportunity for them, that they don't just have to be a biology major in order to work with all of you lovely people here.
Thank you. Lisa?
Well, I can't really think of anything better than what Darren brought up about the innovative reuse. I agree with what he said, that we appear to be on the cusp. This has been in the works, again, a long time. Those of us who've been around a long time know. This idea that we could use dredge material in private industry, and it's really kind of a cutting edge program to say we're gonna do what's necessary to help private industry use this material, and giving them place at the STAR facility. That's very generous, and just basically making it easy for them to use, and then that enables, by making it easier for the private sector to use this material, you're really helping stoke the fire of innovation. And I know we're all hoping that this really scales up. So to me, that's the next big thing to be looking out for.
I'm really pleased that it says here, number 8, develop a plan for Hart Miller Island North Cell habitat development in collaboration with Maryland Department of Human Natural Resources and the Citizens Oversight Committee. So I'm extremely pleased, and that makes me very optimistic. So that's for my COC hat. For my friend's hat, I'm really looking forward to our collaboration. I can't tell you what it is, right? We can't tell anybody what it is, but I think there's some collaboration coming down. And then we're also waiting for, which will be a lot of learning. I've learned so much from just in a short time with this group. And the other thing, we're expecting another grant too, to be able to maybe do the program. And we've had some really great support from the aquarium, see Charmaine out there, but we need to do more for the citizens, for the children, for the next generation, and for all children, all families.
I couldn't agree more, and I appreciate each of your perspective on investing in the next generation, investing in the future of dredged material management, innovative solutions, and ways to manage an operation that will continue to go on. So thank you for that. I will turn to the audience to see if there are any questions. Oh.
Hello? Works? All right. Thanks all. I really do appreciate your insights and all of the work and collaboration that you have given us. I'm Laura Banky from the National Aquarium. This is for Dr. Wanger, mostly, and I'm still trying to formulate the question in my head, so forgive me a little bit. But we talked about the session today started with a discussion around the impending economics related to the Port of Baltimore. Mission critical things will go on, but things that aren't mission critical, there's a question mark over. So I think I want to know, I really appreciated your conversation around the index that you created around the options for dredged material and how James and Barron kind of were standing out. So how do we both understand and measure the value of the collaboration of the port with the people in this room, with the students that come through the programs, with the friends of groups, like the citizen community work that happens with the port to make these projects so meaningful and impactful? How do we measure that value, and how do we make a case for continuing this work in hard economic times?
An excellent question. Assuming people are responding to data, we have opportunities to bring out both the tangible and intangible aspects of the value of these programs. I mean, I think we can all listen to what Kadia does and know that's going to pay dividends over the long term. But the question is, if we want to measure it to be more convincing, what can we do? And I'll just call out to my colleague, Dr. Scott Kanaki, who's in the audience, who we've worked with for many years. He's at Morgan State University, and their group has actually valued how the community values Masonville Cove and other green spaces around Baltimore. And so he's actually he and his team have put dollar values on that to show to people, and that there's information at the table on that. So that's one thing we can do. And that covers both sort of the tangible and intangible. Do you go there to recreate, but do you just like knowing it's there? And so that there are those things. There are other things that we'll never be able to monetize, but maybe by quantifying them, we can help people understand the benefits. All those birds that are supported, all those many species, I think that goes beyond what we expected, honestly. And so, but again, people have to want to use the data and be convinced. So, it only goes so far. And I think the rest of the story is how we as a community come together to push perspectives. So.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Oh, one in the back.
My question is, we're always talking about the Port of Baltimore, but we have tributaries that empty into the Chesapeake Bay that contributes to the conditions for the dredging constantly in the Chesapeake Bay. What are we doing to overcome the tributaries that empty in to the Chesapeake Bay that need to be dredged? I have mentioned numerous times to different people over a condition of Back River. It's the most disastrous river that there is, overpolluted and whatever to be. And I also mentioned that we need to open up the Hart and Miller Island situation there to receive the dredged material from these tributaries. And we have a problem with the midges because the areas have become swamplands, and we need to dredge all the swamplands so we can remove the midgets that are accumulating there, because I understand that they don't live in salt water. And this condition would have an economical impact because people would be putting in piers, buying boats, and other conditions, and it will help the fishing also because of the cleaning up of the small tributaries that need to be. And maybe Paul can answer that in a situation. I know I went a little bit overboard on my, but it's very important to have these things taken care of.
I can't imagine you went overboard, Francis, but we have experts here. Sam Weaver's right here. If there's a midge expert, I'd say it's Sam. And there's a lot of work being done in Back River. The community is very active. You're very active. I'm not sure that's a port issue. I think that's a community issue that is, and there's lots of good things happening. And I appreciate your question. As far as dredge from Back River onto Middle River, you and I need to talk about that because we have probably different opinions, and I'm not going to get into a debate here. But I really do think we can talk more about that.
Yeah.
To have it dredged back to 1940, remove all swampland. No environmental issue is involved because Mother Nature will go back and take care of Mother Nature. Thank you.
I think that's a
interesting
great
thought.
point.
Good
Yeah,
point.
and thank you, Paul, for giving some insight there. Definitely, again, I encourage you to follow up with us in the room. I think Back River might be a Baltimore County question, but we would be happy to kind of help direct maybe an answer for that. All right, I think that might wrap up our time on stage. I want to first say thank you and show my gratitude to the panelists here for openly sharing your experiences with the DMMP and really providing different perspectives and insight on what it looks like to balance economics with stewardship and science with stewardship and investing in the next generation and having community input. So thank you for that. To our audience, thank you for your attention. Thank you for your questions. Again, I hope you are inspired to learn more and get involved. I encourage you to visit our website, maryland-dmmp.com. Also, before you leave, if you did not have a chance already, please stop at our stations. If you're wondering where to start, we've made it really easy. Stewardship starts here. They're ready to talk with you. Thank you. A big round of applause for our panelists.
Okay. Thank you so much, Danielle, and all of our panelists for sharing your insights and your experiences working with the MPA. I think what we've heard today reminds us that the Port of Baltimore is more than just a transportation hub. It's a place where innovation, sustainability, and community all come together, creating a lasting impact for Maryland's economy and the environment. So before I move on to our next agenda item, I did want to recognize Delegate Regina Boyce, the Vice Chair of the House Environment and Transportation Committee, who joined us today. We greatly appreciate your support of the Port of Baltimore and the Dredged Material Management Program. So thank you so much for joining us today. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Fernando Morales-Wilhelm. He's the president of the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, and he will now present the Dredged Material Management Program's recommendations for 2026.
Thank you, Holly, very much, Director Daniels, and all who have organized this very interesting meeting today. The panel was exciting, difficult act to follow. So, to those that I've not had the privilege to meet, I'm Fernando Miralles Wilhelm. I'm president of UMSIS, And I thank for the opportunity to present this year's annual report recommendations, as well as share some thoughts on them. I serve, in addition to being president of UMCS, I serve as the liaison between the management and executive committees of the DMMP. And each year, the DMMP Management Committee puts forward a series of recommendations to guide the continued progress of the DMMP, and my report to you today shares these recommendations. 2025 has been a strong year for the DMMP, as you heard and witnessed in the previous interventions. I think thanks to the work of the DMMP committees at large and the Port strategic investments and long-term planning, we continue to see the real measurable progress that you've heard about today. The DMMP work shows that it is possible to maintain a world-class port operation, protect the Chesapeake Bay, all while advancing science-informed solutions, supporting job creation, and meeting the needs of communities across Maryland. This is not a zero-sum game. If done properly, if we work together, the results that you see today achieve all these multiple objectives. The 2025 annual report that you have in front of you, and you have a summary in the package that you got in your desks. There's one of the pages that has more colors than the other. That is the synthesis of the report on one side, and on the back it has the recommendations in the report. And as alluded to earlier, you're free to pick up and peruse a full copy of the report before you go out. As we have done in previous years, we have categorized the recommendations into three groups: funding and policy, planning and operations, and outreach and education. I won't read them to you in detail. They're fairly short, they're fairly succinct, but in the interest of time, I won't read them to you. But I will highlight some of the key elements contained with them. And the first recommendation highlights that in order to keep the Port of Baltimore competitive and sustainable, the DMMP must secure strong funding and enabling policies that allow us to maintain our channels. This includes support for critical projects like Mid-Bay and advocating for favorable provisions in the upcoming legislation. The second funding and policy recommendations aligns the DMMP with Maryland's climate goals of 60% greenhouse gas reductions by 2031 and net zero emissions by 2045. This recommendation emphasizes reducing emissions in dredging and placement operations and ensuring funding is available to implement these improvements. The third recommendation focuses on looking ahead, ensuring there is enough placement capacity and that this capacity is matched with projected dredging needs over a 20-year rolling timeline. This is key to ensure strategic forecasting and sustainable planning. With respect to placement options for the Virginia channels, it is recommended to re-engage the Virginia Bay Enhancement Working Group to help identify cost-effective, sustainable placement sites for material dredged from the Virginia channels, including opportunities for beneficial use. Recommendation number 5 keeps the emphasis on applying best available science to scale nature-based solutions, like island restoration and living shorelines, in DMMP planning. These projects enhance resilience and create ecological co-benefits. Our sixth recommendation stresses the importance of working with the Bay Enhancement Working Group to make beneficial use more predictable and easier to implement in Baltimore Harbor. Following rigorous pilot testing and experimentation, recommendation number 7 scales up innovative reuse, turning dredged material into valuable resources for things like construction, fill, and environmental restoration. The Port's STAR facility and the State Highway Administration partnerships are key levers here. Recommendation number 8 speaks directly to developing a plan to transform the Hart Merrill Island North Cell into a thriving habitat area, designed in collaboration with DNR and local stakeholders. It is an opportunity to deliver both environmental and community value. Recommendation number 9 speaks to the DMMP's commitment to adaptive management, minimizing or mitigating environmental impacts to reduce harm, share benefits equitably, and adjusting practices based on what we learn. This recommendation reinforces that the program's environmental performance is part of its operational excellence. While this may come as a surprise to you, some Marylanders still don't know how vital the DMMP is to the state's economy, environment, and communities. Kidding aside, recommendation number 10 focuses on continuing to improve world-class engagement and education programs and continuing to tell the program's story even more clearly and broadly to an ever-expanding network of stakeholders. I think the conversation in the panel today was a great reflection of efforts like this. Recommendation number 11 reemphasizes that equity is a core principle of the DMMP, ensuring that as a program, the DMP continues to collaborate with communities, engaging the full spectrum of stakeholders in the development of projects and the distribution of their benefits. Decision-making in the DMMP must remain transparent, participatory, and responsive. Recommendation number 12 maintains the ongoing commitment to meaningful engagement as a key component of all the work that's done by the DMMP. These recommendations collectively represent a vision shaped by science, strengthened by collaboration, and grounded in the deep commitment each of you here today brings to this program. The Maryland DMMP has long been recognized as a national and international model, not only for how to manage dredged material, but also for how it integrates innovation and engagement with communities, all while stewarding both the economy and the Chesapeake Bay. And this is a partnership, as you've seen today: scientists, engineers, educators, federal and state agencies, local governments, community groups, voices, all working together to solve complex challenges with integrity, creativity, and care. That's what gives this program staying power and keeps the Port of Baltimore strong and our communities resilient. And that's what will carry this work into the next decade and beyond. So thanks to all of you for coming today and for the contributions that you do all the time to the shared mission as we keep building on this momentum together. Thank you very much. And don't forget to read the recommendations and the report. Thank you, Holly. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morales-Wilhelm. And thanks to all of our management and executive committee members for their considerable contributions to the DMMP, including these recommendations and the annual report. So as you've heard today, MPA has been working with our stakeholders for more than 2 decades to develop cost-effective, innovative, and environmentally sound science-based long-term placement and capacity solutions. We've met expected and unexpected challenges, and we remain steadfast in our commitments to Maryland communities as stewards of our economy and the environment. As a result, the Port's programs will continue to have positive impacts in and around the Chesapeake Bay, improving habitat for native plants and animals, and positively impacting the lives of Marylanders. Looking forward, we know that our strategy, our team, and our partnerships with all of you will lead to solutions that benefit our stakeholders and ensure a thriving Port of Baltimore. Okay, so we're always looking to increase opportunities for engagement. So please check out the full schedule of our 2026 Dredged Material Management Program meetings. We've included that in your packet, but it's on, it's the next page after the agenda, and it's also available on our website. So please check that out. You can add them right to your calendar from the website if you want to do that. This brings us to the end of all of our presentations for this morning. I want to say a special thank you to all of our speakers for their excellent presentations today, and to our team for putting together such a great meeting. This doesn't come together without a lot of hard work, so I really want to say thank you to the team. And let me especially thank all of you for the privilege of your partnership and your unwavering commitment to the DMMP. We're extremely grateful for your service, your interest, and your dedication to the process, and I'm especially thankful for the gift of your time in participating in the numerous committee meetings we have throughout the year and meetings like this one today. So this collaboration helps us foster a brighter future and continuously demonstrates that a healthy port can benefit not only the economy, but also our communities and the environment. So thank you so much for being part of this vitally important effort, for supporting us, for challenging us to do better, and for remaining committed to this important cause. As we wrap up, I invite you to please, explore the displays that are around the room and learn more about our projects directly from our project managers. They're more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, and they're really the experts on these projects. For those of you that are watching online, if you have any questions regarding what you've heard today, please email us at ecoport@marylandports.com, and we will respond to your questions as soon as possible. And one last thing before I dismiss everyone, please take a moment to fill out our feedback survey. We've provided you with a paper copy in your packets. You can fill that out and drop it in the box on your way out this morning. Or you can scan the QR code that's on the screen and fill out the survey digitally. If you're an online participant, you can also scan the QR code. We'd love to receive your feedback. And so with that, I just want to thank everyone so much for joining us this morning, and I wish everyone a very, very happy holiday season. Thank you so much.